Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everybody, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. Thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learn more about today's topic, which is BIM 360 design in the infrastructure space. And we're going to specifically kind of look at an entitlement called Collaboration for Civil 3D. Hey, before we get into that, just a little bit about myself. I've been at Imaginet for, it's been 20 years, a couple of months ago. So I've been a professional geek for quite some time, but really prior to that, I kind of was where probably most of you are. I worked for a private engineering surveying firm for about 5 years, and then I moved to a municipality in the engineering department for about 3.5 years, and subsequently went to Imaginet, where my main role right now is managing a team of technical experts that implement really all things civil engineering, survey, data management, industry related. So enough about me. I promise this is going to be a presentation that's a whole lot more live than it is PowerPoint, but I do have just a couple of slides so that we can get everybody on the same page. My agenda, goes something like, understanding the benefit of the BIM 360 platform. We'll talk a little bit about, kind of required software and things that you need to have in place, to make the most out of the system. And then we're going to move right into live demonstration. We're going to talk, that'll focus, how Civil 3D works, with BIM 360, any implications to workflow that you would need to think about. We're going to touch a little bit about the mobile apps, if my phone will cooperate. And after that, we'll review, summarize, and let you about your day. So my goals for this is at the end of this, just for everybody on this call to have some exposure, to the BIM 360 platform, but specifically, what we're going to call BIM 360 docs and BIM 360 design. We'll talk about the rest of the modules here in a little bit. We're going to take a peek at just a subset of the capabilities, and I want to make sure that, number one, everybody understands the benefits of this technology and that we can get all of your questions answered and addressed. So with that, let's get started. And if you think about, what is, BIM 360 design and what is BIM 360? And I think it helps to, think about who are the different, I'm going to use the word constituents or stakeholders, project members in any given project, right? And there are, what I'm going to lump in is just, designers, and I'm using that word very generally and openly, meaning, these are the architects, these are the civil engineers, the rest of, the sub-consultants. Right. Then there's a group of people that are more coordinator based, project managers, BIM managers, BIM specialists, et cetera. And then there's decision makers, right? And those are, principals, project owners, clients. So the whole point of, BIM 360 is to have a central repository for all of the project information, whether it be civil engineering, architecture, MEP, any of those subdisciplines have a location, that can store and house all of the project information that is accessible, to anyone on any device. And that's kind of a tall task. So really, you can think of, what is BIM 360 design? It is a collaboration platform, right? And we'll talk more about this moving forward. if you've been around, any of these other presentations, when people will use the word BIM 360, and BIM 360 is kind of a catch-all type of a term, right? It is the name of the overall platform. However, there are several modules that go into it and that make it up. The first part, is certainly BIM 360 docs. This is kind of the base level. This is going to provide file viewing, obviously access to the information. This is where markups, issue creation comes from, and then there are a handful of additional modules that go with it. We're going to talk a lot about BIM 360 design because that's what brings the Civil 3D integration to it. But just know that there's also BIM 360 coordinate and BIM 360 build. We're not going to talk about those last two modules, but they do exist, and used, a little more in the construction type of a space. So when we hone this back into BIM 360 design, this is what enables the Civil 3D integration, to be able to have data shortcuts in the cloud, external references, file locking, things like that. That is what is making it all happen. Now, when you buy BIM 360 design, you actually get the module inside of the system that gets turned on is what's called design collaboration. And once design collaboration is turned on, there's certain entitlements that you get. So, to ultimately make BIM 360, work in the Civil 3D environment, you need to have what's called the collaboration for Civil 3D entitlement. And that's something that your software manager or software coordinator is going to do. Autodesk has a portal where all the license information is managed, and they basically associate, this particular entitlement, to your Autodesk ID. In a way, it's like giving you a license. So just know that moving forward. Now, when we think about, specifically for in a civil space, right, narrowing the focus, down to, how do civil engineers, type people use this? We're really concerned, with basically BIM 360 docs and BIM 360 design. The design is what brings, what's in the middle, the collaboration for Civil 3D, to have Civil 3D type information, be able to sync back and forth and to have it understand, objects and data shortcuts, things like that. All right, with a BIM 360 design license, you also get BIM 360 docs. That's the information on the left-hand side of this slide. The document management module, that's what docs stand for, document management, right? And that's where, we can view files, do revisions, assign issues, the mobile application access, etc. But all of this is made possible with a free application that installs, on the workstations called Desktop Connector. And what Desktop Connector is it's kind of like a middleman between Civil 3D and BIM 360. So when we tell Civil 3D that we want to open a file that's on, the BIM 360 platform, what Desktop Connector does is it'll take care of, going out, downloading the file, locking it. It will look to see if there's any additional files that need to come with it. So if there's any X references or things like that need to come along, it'll take care of that. And then it will, open it or basically hand it off to Civil 3D to open. Right? Once, as designers, as we work, when we save things or when we, close out of that file, what will happen is Desktop Connector will take back over and send all of that information back up to the cloud and unlock, the files. And the nice thing about Desktop Connector is it does all of this automatically for us, right? We don't have to tell it to do it. It just happens in the background. So with that information out of the way, I figured let's take a peek, and I'm going to jump out of PowerPoint and jump into Civil 3D. I'm going to trust that everybody can see that. And like I said, the very first thing that happens, or the secret sauce to this, if you will, is I bring my file explorer over, is Desktop Connector. And like I said, it's a free application that gets installed. Autodesk updates it regularly. As a matter of fact, there was a new version released yesterday that has resolved a couple of issues that people have been having. But what happens is once it's installed on your system, it shows up just like any other drive, right? And what we found for people right now is, or usually for the most part, people are used to working on, a P drive, a J drive, a Q drive, a Z drive, some sort of network share that's been mapped, to a drive letter. I think that is by far the most common way that we work. And this year, and all the events of this year, have really exposed that can, that works really great as long as you've got access to your servers. And when you get separated from those servers, access can be a little difficult, right? And I've talked to a lot of clients over the months, and people have gotten really creative on how they're solving this. A very popular way is, okay, well, I'll just VPN back into my office and work like that. But I think what we're finding is civils work on large files and large data sets. Our stuff is not small, and when you're working over a VPN type of a connection, that VPN takes up a lot of bandwidth in and of itself. So that tunnel, the size of our pipe, so to say, gets smaller, and we start to have performance issues. The great thing about BIM 360 is it's no VPN required, right? You are communicating directly to the servers where your data is, and we're not going through any other third parties like a VPN, right? So Desktop Connector is going to show up just like a drive, and once I click on that, it's going to start to display and feed me the information that I have access to, right? And we'll see that, here's the Imagine It hub, but, I'm also been invited into, a handful of other hubs and client portals, and those are going to show up here for me too, right? So if I go into my Imagine It hub, here is all of the projects, or here are all of the projects, that I have access to, right? And it's a very permissions controlled type of a software. You can get very granular with it, but the one that we're going to be working with and taking a peek at is this collab for Civil 3D. And if we look at the project files, ultimately, I'm going to be in this project ABX, right? These are all the files, that we're going to be, ultimately working with. Now, just in contrast of what does that look like inside of, BIM 360? Once we log into that BIM 360 hub, here it is for Imagine It. Here's my project. Here's that same project ABX. And here are those exact same files. And what I'll do is bring these up side by side. And other than the back files, everything that you see, in my file explorer is what we see over in the BIM 360 system. And we'll do a whole lot more inside of the web browser here in just a little bit. One of the nice things that BIM 360 or that Desktop Connector also shows is information about these files, whether it's a new file, whether it's been synchronized, whether it's out of date, it'll say stale, what version of the file exists, on my system right now, and then things like, who created it, if it was locked, who was it locked by, etc. So that being said, let's jump over into Civil 3D here. And I've got a drawing. This is actually one of the sample files that comes with Civil 3D. So I haven't done absolutely anything special at all. This is one of the surface drawings that's in the help section. But one of the big things that I want to kind of get across with this is your Civil 3D workflows likely aren't going to need to be modified or changed all that much, right? If you are working with data shortcuts now, not a whole lot is going to change to work with data shortcuts in a BIM 360 environment. Honestly, the only thing that will change is where the working folder gets set. And what we will do with that is, if we take a look at mine, under data shortcuts, what I've done for my working folder is I've just set it to that particular project location, right? And the way that I did that was I said set working folder. And instead of, kind of doing it, C colon or J colon or what have you, I just went right into BIM 360 and set it inside of Desktop Connector. Right, that's all there is to it. It will look at it being Civil 3D. Will now start pointing to the Desktop Connector location, which in turn is going to be synchronizing back and forth with BIM 360. So that's kind of really all there is to it there. One other thing that I'll add about Desktop Connector is, when once it installs down in the system tray, and we're looking at a different monitor, but it shows up in the system tray, and if we right-click on it, it has this thing called pending actions. And the one thing that I would probably encourage everybody to take away is keep an eye on pending actions, right? This is how Desktop Connector communicates with us. If there's any troubles, this is how Desktop Connector is going to display those troubles. So the other thing that we can do with this is we can kind of just keep an eye on what's going on, right? Is our stuff syncing? Is it not syncing? Is something holding it up for whatever reason? Right, Desktop Connector is going to tell us that. Now, I haven't put this drawing inside of BIM 360 yet. And again, this file is just called XG. So let's scrunch this up just a little bit. And literally, it's to quote, put it inside of BIM 360. All I'm going to do is save it to my project location, right? So collab. Project ABX, right? Here's XG, right? I'm gonna hit save, and I'm gonna immediately kind of go look at pending actions, and we'll see that it's saying, hey, I need to sync the file, and then it's gonna lock the file, right? Because it is making sure that while I have this drawing open, nobody else can open it for edit, right? So it is making sure that multiple people aren't working on the same file at the same time. And that's pretty important. So with that, for the rest of us, we just keep working, right? In the background, if we really wanted to know, here it is. It showed up for me already. I see the little lock icon beside it. It's saying, hey, locked by Joe Hedrick, when, a date and time, so that everybody else, that may need this file, that may need to be referencing this file, looking at this file, what have you, they're going to understand that, what, Joe Hedrick still has this file, kind of locked, if you will, checked out, it's being worked on. So from a civil perspective, though, we'll work. We can create some shortcuts just like we typically would. Simple right-click. Let's create data shortcuts. Here's my surface. I'll say OK. And in just a second, we'll see that show up over here on the left-hand side. There it is. that is now a shortcut that's available to the rest of my project. And just to kind of show that, you know what, we can still, even BIM 360 supports the folder organization of shortcuts. So I'm going to throw this into that existing subfolder just to keep things nice and clean and tidy. So with that, I'm going to hit save one more time. And let's talk a little bit about the interface. And to get to the interface, you know, one of the things that Autodesk has done is through the updates of the last kind of year-ish or so, you know, Autodesk kind of changed what the Civil 3D start screen looked like. Right now, as far as you know, more software requirements beyond, we have to have desktop connector. You have to have Civil 3D 2020.2 or greater. Right? So I think in the 2020 world, we're up to 2020.5.1 or .2 something there. But you know, my point is you know, at least 2020.2 or anything later. This stuff has been built in to 2021, you know, out of the box. But the 2020.2 service pack or update is what changes or changed the start screen for Civil 3D. And inside or with this, really, you know, if we take a look at recent files, you know, the nice thing about this is we can instantly tell the files and where they are. You know, just by a simple little icon, you know, whether these are cloud-based BIM 360 files, whether they are local files. And it also adds, you know, the BIM 360 option. And what it's doing is it's looking at that you know, location. Here's my project APX. All of those same files, right? Here they all are. All of the same files, obviously not the back files, are showing up here. And this is even telling me, hey, this file is locked by somebody. And in this case, it's locked by me. It's telling me how many versions of this file there are. From inside of Civil 3D, it is always going to pull the latest, most current version of the file from BIM 360. However, you know, from the web interface of BIM 360, you can download any of the previous versions of that file should you need to revert back to a previous point in your design. And you can also take a previous version and make it, you know, the most current version. So if it's something that you want to do kind of for everybody, you know, associated with the project. But this is kind of nice, and BIM 360 is taking care of all of this for us. Right, so if we wanted to use use this shortcut now, right? I created this this data shortcut to XG. Let's use it, and simply just, you know, dragging and dropping, you know, inside my window, or right click saying create reference. All of that is perfectly valid. We can say okay, and do a zoom extents, and now, you know, I'm ready to go. Anything I would need to do with this surface, I certainly can. It works just like you would expect it to, that you're used to, right? So for that, let me just do quick alignment and profile. I'll just call this core for corridor. This is going to be the start of our corridor model. Right, and from here, we'll do just a quick profile. Right, so there's our file. If I hit save, I thought I saved it as corridor. We'll definitely save it as corridor now. What we will see is Civil Desktop Connector is doing its thing. It is, taking this version of the file, sending it up to BIM 360, and I can continue to work. Right? If we take a look at our project in BIM 360, it's going to show, because I've got both of those drawings open, it's going to show them, being locked to me in both places. If we take a look at this in BIM 360, here it is. The file is up there, and this little spinning circle is the viewer is kind of getting it ready, rendering it out so that it can be viewed in the environment. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to close out of these files. And what that's going to do is that's going to go through and release those drawing locks, right? And we may see that pop up in BIM 360 or in Desktop Connector. It happens really quickly, honestly, there. And I think I just saw a blip for that to happen. So the first one released. Let's just do a quick refresh here. Yeah, and that second one has released. All right, so with that, let's take a peek. Let me refresh this web page and get rid of those drawing locks. Now let's think about what is the benefit, what is the power, what can we do with this data? We've talked a little bit about how Civil 3D interacts with it, and obviously, hopefully, you're finding out that there's really not a whole lot that has to be done. Right, not a whole lot of workflow changes, really required there to pull that off and to make that happen. So that being said, what I'm really about to show now can be done from any device, any operating system, as long as it's a web browser and you've got an internet connection, you can get to this. So if we look at it through the web client, just like this, simply let's find our drawing XG. Simply by clicking on this, what's going to happen is BIM 360 is going to render that drawing to us. Notice that in my particular case, I only have model space, so that's what it's showing me. This 2D view. This is essentially model space. If I had any other page layouts, it would show those too, right? So if you do have additional layouts for your sheets, those sheets are going to be displayed, and I can show an example of that here in a little bit. If we flip over to 3D and say, hey, let's take a peek at the 3D view. This is 3D data, and it's very simple, just using the mouse, or if you've got an iPad or phone or something like that, using your finger, kind of spin this around and take a look at your design, whatever it may be. Right, if we go back to the 2D view, and really I think what I'll do is I'll close this version of it, and let's go to our corridor drawing. Right, here's where those the kind of the that middle section, the project coordinator types, right? Here's how Civil 3D is, or here's how BIM 360, is beneficial to them, right? They don't, these are the people that, probably may or may not have some of the design applications installed on their desktops, right? If they do, these are the managers who think that they have to have it installed just so that they can open it up and say that they're gonna, pan around or print, but miraculously they always manage to mess up the drawing in that process. That's how it was when I was in the production world, and hopefully that resonates with everybody on this call. But what BIM 360 has done is it's really helping to facilitate digital red lines, digital markups. Meaning if we're looking at this drawing and I zoom in, maybe we need to as a manager, I might say, yep, this PI needs to move. Right? So we can simply just, using some of the tools here, and zoom out just a little bit. I can click on that, maybe add some text. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And arrange it wherever it's not in the way. But there's two types of markups inside of, or two types of red lines inside of BIM 360. One being private and the other one being public. Private markups are really just meant for that particular individual, right? Maybe I don't want somebody to see all this or see, my notes, but yeah, I want to make sure that I keep an eye on this, or want to make sure that these structures don't move, or for whatever reason. So it's it's almost kind of like notes to self, if you will. However, if we set them public or published and save the markup, now what that's going to do is BIM 360 is going to track that markup. And we can see that over here in the markups. It's going to tell me that, who created the red line, when they created the red line, if there's any other attachments that you want to send along with this, if you've got any pictures or anything like that need to be associated with this red line, then, by all means, here is a place to do it. Now, going along with that is an idea called issues. And basically the way that issues work is it allows you to essentially assign that red line to someone. And the way that would work is we can come to issues, we can say create an issue, let's drop it right here, give our issue a title, alignment revision, but I get to assign it to either an individual user or an individual company, right? So think about, again, this is meant to be the ultimate collaboration platform, and that, all of the consultants for the given project are working in one common location. So if, as a civil, if, something that I'm doing, is clashes with an architect or what have you, then I would be able to communicate that, through this and just assign it to a particular company. But in my case, I'm going to assign it to myself. I'm going to have a due date and say, you know what, I need this done tomorrow. There's several other boxes, root cause, let's just say, design deficiency, and please relocate PI and hit create. So with that being said, we'll see that new issue got created. This is now being tracked along with the project. I can now myself, I would have gotten an email that said, hey, there's a new issue that's been associated to you, to go ahead and fix it, with a link to where I could zoom right into this particular drawing and see the issue. From a project manager perspective, if we take a look at the project home, right, BIM 360 is helping keep track of all of the issues, right? And we can see, if we tell it to see all of the issues, right here it is. Alignment revision, when is it due? Knowing that it's orange, it's still open. And from a PM perspective, it really helps me, keep track of things as the project progresses along. Now, that being said, let's talk a little bit about the mobile apps. And like I say, I'm going to really hope that my phone decides to behave. And it looks like it is. So that being said, let's do this. And right, what we are looking at is the same project in the BIM 360 app. Right, so there are apps for both Android and iOS. This is the Android version of the app, but essentially, as we can see, we would just kind of go through, take a look at the if I want to see the files, if I want to download anything offline, if I want to see the issues, right? So I can go right back to these issues, and it's showing up. Hey, there's that alignment revision that if I needed to go right to that drawing, we could, right? And I am doing literally pinch zooming on my phone. Right? I don't have any special browser. I mean, the only thing I have at this point is the BIM 360 app, and it takes care of everything else. Now, something else that's kind of nice is this is completely integrated into the mobile device. Meaning, if let's just say that if we're looking right in here, and maybe we've got some sort of a grading issue. I could say, all right, issues, I want right there. All right, we're going to call it grading. And then, hey, let's take a picture. Let's help that designer back in the office. And if I had already taken a photo, I could say upload photo. If I want to take a photo, it moves right into my camera. Now, what I'm going to do, and I apologize for the blinds, but just snap a quick picture through the blind, and we will associate this. Again, the exact same questions or exact same form to fill out. Again, due date. Maybe we'll give them a little bit of time there. Root cause unspecified. Let's just say design deficiency again, and then just please. Oops, good old autocorrect. Right, and now there's a new issue that's been created. Right, and just that fast. The second that back in the office, we refresh this. Here it is. We can see the due date on the 17th. If I want to see the additional details for that issue, it opens it up. Here's the attachment. You can look at the photo, right? And just think about all of this being able to happen in almost real time, as project teams out in the field, as things are happening, all of this correspondence can be taking place. And I might say area is as good as it gets. Right, so my project manager, though, now instantly is going to be able to see that, hey, you know what, this has been answered, until ultimately we come to an understanding, a conclusion. All right, so I think with that, I want to make sure that we have time for questions. I do remember saying that I'd like to show, what does a file with different layouts look like, and a couple of things I'll add as we start to look at this file. This is version 4 of the drawing, but if I click on this, right, I can see, I can see all of the previous versions. right? So if I just wanted to download one of these, I could. If I wanted to copy it and make it a new file, I could. There's a compare feature and function to where we can actually look at two drawings and at color codes what's different between the two. And if I wanted to kind of go back in time and say, you know what, I want to make version 2 the most current version, we could do that as well. But taking a peek at this, as I bring this up, you know, these here are the different layouts. You know, so these are essentially the different paper space viewports. And again, just by clicking on it, you know, it does not matter what device I have. It would look just like this on my phone as well, and we can thumb through, you know, the particular files. Right? I meant to talk about the markup tools, or not the markup, but the inquiry-based tools, just a minute, and I forgot about that. But you know, again, you know, there's a lot of managers that all they need to do is kind of print and pan around and take a look at things and check some distances. So you know, there's tools for that, right? What's the distance, you know, across here? Well, you know what? It's 25 feet. Hey, that's what it's supposed to be. You know, how big are these parking spaces? You know, they're 20 foot, 8.5 across, right? There's area tools. There's tools to check angles as well. So with that, I think I'm going to stop, and we'll jump back over to the presentation. And swap that. Yeah, and just to kind of wrap things up a little bit about what we talked about, you know, you know, workflow-wise, you know, hopefully you've seen that it really doesn't require a whole lot of changes to your workflow, right? You're still going to use Civil 3D 99% the way that you've always used Civil 3D. You know, the only change to the workflow, you know, really comes into, you know, number one, we are in a document managed type of an environment, right? So things like drawing locks and stuff like that, you know, come into play. And number two, the location of the data shortcut folder changes, and really your J drive, Q drive, P drive, whatever that network share drive is, basically gets replaced by this thing called BIM 360. So that's really, I think, the extent of the workflow changes. You know, as far as required software goes, again, it's Civil 3D 2020.2 or later, and you have to have BIM 360 design, right? That's sometimes called BIM 360 document collaboration, and you have to have the collaboration for civil entitlement. So with that, one other thing, I would absolutely be remiss if I didn't take an opportunity to talk about, you know, one of our newer services, which is helping people get, you know, up and going with this, right? Hopefully I didn't make it look hard. There is nothing hard about this. It can be a little intricate at times. There's some settings and, you know, permission, things like that to work through. We're here to help for that. And we've got a service that it's one day. It's, you know, not even a complete full day. It's really probably more of a you know, 3/4-ish of a day. But you know, it's really designed to help you go from nothing, meaning, right, you purchase the seats and Autodesk creates your hub, and really letting us help take it from there to really showing you how to, you know, kind of administer it, you know, how to add users, how to add projects, how to add companies, right? How to make it work, you know, in your environment, helping getting your users plugged into it, you know, your, you know, data structure, your folders, subfolders, things like that, you know, and then assisting, you know, and showing your team how to really use Civil 3D in conjunction with it. So if that sounds like something that would be beneficial, please contact your account manager. for more information about that. Finally, here's my my contact information. If you happen to have any questions, feel free to reach out. Email is by far the best way to get a hold of me. And with that, I will ask Gladys if we have any questions.
Thanks, Joe. Everyone, go ahead and key your questions into the Q&A panel. And I see our first question coming through. Does BIM 360 work well with ProjectWise, mostly in regards to data shortcuts?
Yes, I mean, I would say BIM 360 is doing what ProjectWise does. You know, BIM 360 is, you know, kind of Autodesk cloud-based collaboration system. So, I mean, I'm not sure that I would try to use them both simultaneously. It's really kind of an either or, but, you know, I'd say, you know, BIM 360, you know, does a lot of what ProjectWise does.
How does the process of moving a project from local systems and local networks to the cloud compare to the process that you showed?
So that's a great question. When it comes to moving files and things like that, it's a long answer. So bear with me. You know, number one, you know, and kind of for a while with Civil 3D or with BIM 360, you know, really, if the project was going to be utilized in BIM 360, it kind of needed to be started in BIM 360. So that being said, you know, I understand that that's kind of a perfect world utopia way to look at things. So depending on how your project is structured is going to, you know, really kind of impact how well it translates over. And what I mean by that is, you know, BIM 360 works with essentially a whole lot of relative paths, right? That's how it handles external references and things like that. So, you know, there are ways, you know, to migrate projects over. Depending on, like I say, depending on how elaborate it is, you may be able just to dump it into, you know, the desktop connector equivalent location and let BIM 360 do the synchronization. You know, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, honestly. I know that Autodesk is working on kind of some specific tools to help that migration, you know, just to make that migration a little bit easier. You know, from what I've seen of it, it looks, you know, somewhat similar to how, you know, like Autoloader with Autodesk Vault works. But it's something that there are ways to do it. The short answer is there are ways to do it. The longer answer is it really how well it works depends on, you know, a lot of how your data is structured.
Are the private markups subject to archiving and eDiscovery?
Yeah, the private markups get stored right along with everything else in BIM 360.
How are the XREFs used and saved via BIM 360, and do they work as good as the data shortcuts?
So to do XREFs in BIM 360, it's really no different than XREFing any other file. Only you look at the, you know, desktop connector location of the file, right? So instead of where you would navigate, you know, I want to XREF and go to my, you know, J drive, blah, 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 and point to the drawing, you would do it inside of, you know, the BIM 360 location of it. XREFs work fine. I will tell you there's been, you know, a little bit of hiccup with how some people structure their external references, meaning, you know, up until, and like I said, there was an update of Desktop Connector yesterday that is seemed to you know, make a lot of headway with this particular issue. But BIM 360, it didn't like circular references of I reference this file, and then that particular file references, the first one back. So there were some challenges with that, but no, extras work okay.
What internet speed are you using, and what minimum speed do you recommend?
Yeah, so and that's something that I will be more than happy to get a link to Gladys. So when she sends out the post presentation survey, we can include that link. But I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive that Autodesk recommends at least a 10 megabit connection or better. Like everybody else, I'm at home right now, so I have a 5 gigabit connection.
Great. My department has been using this platform for most of the year with great success. One issue I have been experiencing is bringing over, one second, my screen just froze. Here we go. Bringing over custom pipe catalogs from a local drive to BIM 360.
Custom pipe catalogs, I think that's something that probably could be stored in BIM 360, but Civil 3D is not going to access those custom pipe catalogs from BIM 360. Custom pipe catalogs have to go into C program data, blah blah blah. Basically where the Civil 3D installation lives. So I think you could if you wanted to store those custom catalogs up in the system, maybe just zip them all together, you could, but you're going to end up having to put them in in Civil 3D's location for those catalogs to be read, right? And then just to expound on that just a little bit more, it kind of makes a difference if it's a catalog that was created by Part Builder, which has been the historic way to create custom catalogs for Civil 3D, or if it's kind of the newer style with created with Inventor and Infrastructure Parts Editor. There's the older way is a little more flexible than the newer way as far as the locations of some of those files. But regardless, all of them end up in by default C program files .
Are there templates and standards frameworks for C4C 3D in the cloud?
So there's really not any templates and standards that come with from the BIM 360 perspective. And I think the thing of it is you can use whatever folder structure you would like to use or that you're already using, right? You can, if we let Civil 3D, from Civil 3D, if we let it create that project, and if we were to pick the prototype project that we've been able to do forever inside of Civil 3D, it'll Desktop Connector will go ahead and create all of those folders up in BIM 360. But as far as a standard folder structure out of the box in BIM 360, no.
And then here's a two-part question. In my BIM 360 folder, I'm unable to do File Explorer commands on files like copy and paste. Is this a permissions issue? How can it be fixed?
I don't think it's a permissions issue. I have, and let me check out one thing here, right? Because I think it's one of those things, even though it's not obvious, you can still do it. And what I mean by that, right? It could be a permissions thing, but like, Yeah, so with XG here, when we right click on it, right, what it's trying to do, I mean, these are very desktop connector-ish type of commands, delete the file or free up space, which will delete it off your local machine, but not delete it out of BIM 360 if we want to lock it, things like that. But I do believe that you can do the keyboard equivalent. Maybe not anymore. Well, so I don't think it's yeah, I don't think it's permissions because it's happening on mine too. So I think we used to could be able to do Control C, Control V, and things like that, but maybe not now.
And then part 2, in my BIM 360 folder, I don't have the ability to right-click on multiple selected PDF files and combine them into one file with Acrobat. Does the BIM 360 support application shortcuts in the right-click menu?
Yeah, well, I think if you wanted to do that, honestly, because this desktop connector, I mean, this is one of those folders where yes, it's exposed, but this is really for desktop connectors use. I think if you needed to download a whole bunch of PDFs and combine them, then I would do it from the web. I would go through the web interface. You can click multiple files, you can download them, and then that's going to allow you to control the location of where you want them. So by default, it would go like into my downloads folder, and then from there you can do whatever you want to with it.
How does C4C3D and what you showed compare to using Autodesk Drive as a drop location to share files?
So as it contains to Drive or A360, number one, A360 doesn't do anything with Civil 3D data shortcuts. A360, the way that I look at it is it's way more for personal use, maybe personal storage type of a thing. You have a limited amount of storage with BIM 360. The second that you subscribe, you get unlimited storage, right? So it does not matter how many terabytes of data you decide to dump up there. I know Drive isn't like that, but I think the big thing is Drive. I mean, Drive doesn't understand Civil 3D shortcuts and things like that.
Will C4C3D work well with VMware VDIs?
I don't see why it wouldn't. I have several, I personally use VMware Workstation, for test environments and things like that, and I don't have any issues.
Once your project is complete, how easy is it to download the project back to your own network for historical backup?
Yeah, you can literally, it's kind of clicking on the top level of a folder and saying download.
Is any ETA as to when C4C3D will have more granular locking than file locking? Something like field level locking that BIM 360 with Revit has.
I would not know, honestly. Yeah, I haven't heard anything from Autodesk about that particular thing.
Okay. Looks like that was our last question, and we're right at the top of the hour just about. Thank you everyone for attending. If you have questions later, you can send an email to either Joe's email address, which he displayed on the screen, or info@rand.com, or you can call us at 800-356-9050. We will send everyone that attended or registered a recording of this session. On behalf of Imaginet and our presenter, Joe Hedrick, thank you again for joining our session. Enjoy the remainder of your day.